My name is Stuart Ryle. I'm a Principal Technologist at Connected Places Catapult. And I've been working on a number of these Horizon Scan projects, which we've run on behalf of Network Rail. In a few minutes, I'm going to hand over to Anna Hatchie from Network Rail, who will give a bit of a short overview of the program basically which we're supporting, or the Accelerated Innovation Program, which she works for with Network Rail. And she'll kind of explain a little bit how this Horizon Scan activity feeds into the activities that team is doing. But before I do that, I'll just give a few brief words about who the Connected Places Catapult are, and then a bit of a quick overview of how we're planning to run this session today. So just give you a bit of an overview of the catapults first. So some of you may be familiar with them, but just for completeness, I'll give a few words about who we are and what we do. So the catapults are neutral, not-for-profit organisations which are created by Innovate UK to foster innovation and to promote productivity and economic growth within the UK. I'll talk a little bit about how we do that in just a second. At the moment, there are 9 different catapults which form a network of world-leading technology centres organised around specific areas of UK strength. So, for example, there's high-value manufacturing catapult, there's digital technologies catapult, there's offshore renewables, satellite applications, and of course, Connected Places Catapult. Connected Places Catapult itself was formed in April last year by merging together the former Transport Systems Catapult and Future Cities Catapult, and obviously bringing the kind of skills and strengths of those two organisations. We obviously have a strong interest and presence in transport-related innovation. So kind of very briefly an overview of how the catapults kind of work. So essentially the catapults are kind of made up of a range of industry and technical experts in the particular area that they're focused towards. So basically people who understand a lot of the core technology and the core requirements and the core challenges in that industry sector. We also work with a number of innovation partnerships. So Network Rail being the obvious one, but other organisations such as HS2, who we kind of work hand in hand with to help them shape demand and help mature the market. We also work with a number of academic partners, so we have deep alliances with a number of universities, and we can essentially coordinate research on behalf of industry, or alternatively help draw research and innovation out of academia and help it to kind of progress towards market and towards commercialization. Similar to that, we also have a strong SME network, so we work with over 1,500 SMEs, again to help them develop their technology if they have requirements in that area, but also to help them sort of springboard their technologies and help them to get them into the market to be a commercial product. In terms of how we do that, there's kind of, I suppose, 3 kind of core themes we have really. So connecting the market. So this is essentially trying to link together innovative technologies with the markets that they may be able to serve, or equally helping industry such as Network Rail, for example, to find innovative technologies that can help their business. We also work by sparking new possibilities. So this can be a lot around thought leadership or business case analysis, and also the general kind of engagement we have with academia and SMEs and the like. And then we also work to kind of accelerate, as I said, the commercialization of technology. So this can be either helping innovative companies to say accelerate the development of their technology, or equally by helping link up innovative companies with potential markets. So kind of moving on a bit more specifically to what we're doing with Network Rail. So we currently have a program called the Innovation Factory, which has been running for a bit every year now. And broadly speaking, within this program, we work to help Network Rail, once they've identified a challenge or a business need, essentially find solutions or technologies which can help them in that area. So maybe a number of ways in which we could do this. So it could be, we engage with industry and academia through our networks, or to find or invite solutions to the challenges identified. So this pin is a very good example of that. We can help to foster creativity to find new ideas or solutions. So that could be through, for example, through hackathon events. We can provide sort of a neutral view on potential technology, which could help to find new technologies or assess existing but transferable designs. Or once a technology has been identified, we can help to accelerate the development of that, either by supporting further sort of technical development or through supporting demonstrators or any activities which are needed to essentially make a technology deployable. So we've done a number of these essentially technology horizon scanning activities for Network Rail now, which is, as I said before, helping them to identify solutions to challenges they have. So these projects tend to run in a fairly standard way, where initially we'd work with Network Rail to understand the nature of the challenge they have, to capture the essential attributes any solution would need to encapsulate, and ultimately to turn that into the challenge statement document, which I hope you will all have read by now. The requirement with the challenge statement is not to define an exact specification of what's required, but more to outline what the problem is to which a solution is needed. And that's done on purpose, so as not to kind of stifle or to rule out any innovation or any technical solutions. So once this challenge is defined and published, we push out to industry through the pin, which hopefully we've found, and we invite organisations such as yourselves to offer potential approaches which you believe can deliver a solution to the challenge. In parallel with that activity, we also conduct our own horizon scanning activity to identify if there are solutions or technologies in development which may also have the potential to address the challenge. And ultimately, the culmination of both the open pin call and our own desktop research, we present back to Network Rail the potential technology landscape with recommendations as to which technologies or which solutions we feel would be most worthy for them to sort of look at in more detail. So that's a kind of a very quick run through who the Catapult is, what we do, and how these kind of programs, these projects work. So for today's event specifically, obviously the purpose of this webinar is to offer you the opportunity to kind of reinforce your understanding of the challenge statement which has been published, and for you to clarify any questions which you may have around either the process for submitting an idea or requesting any more specific requirement questions which you might have around what the technology needs to be able to do. So this event is intended to be a fully sort of a two-way engagement event, so please feel free to ask as many questions as you need. The format for today, so first part was an introduction by myself, so I've just covered that. In a second, I'm going to hand over to Anna, who will give a bit of an overview of what the Accelerated Innovation Programme is within Network Rail and what they're essentially looking to achieve. I'm then going to hand over to Aidan, who's going to give a bit more or recap on the challenge statement and put a bit more detail around what it is that the solution needs to be able to do. And then after that, it'll be the sort of open question and answer session. So now that's the main focus of today's session. If you have a question you want to pose, you should be able to find the Q&A panel within the Zoom window. So at any point you have a question, if you can write the question into that box, when we get to the Q&A session at the end, essentially we'll just go through each question in order one at a time, and we'll open up the microphone so you've got the opportunity to sort of ask your question openly, and then between ourselves and Network Rail, we'll do our best to answer the questions that you have. Okay, so that's it from me. So hand over now to Anna, who will give a bit of an overview of the Accelerated Innovation Programme.
Afternoon, everyone. My name's Anna Hatchie. I'm a project manager from the Accelerated Innovation team. Our Accelerated Innovation Programme falls within a wider research and development portfolio, which some of you may be aware of, at Network Rail. And as part of that, I thought it would be useful to provide you with some context around our involvement in this particular work, but in general, our approach to innovative projects. So, sorry, I'll just put it in presentation mode. So as part of what we call Control Period 6, which is a 5-year period of funding, Network Rail Research and Development has £245 million to spend on various projects. And I believe there's over 100 projects across our entire portfolio. It might even be 140, as high as that. We also have some third-party funding, so we go for matched funding where we can, just to make sure that we are accessing all possible avenues and supporting innovation across the industry. And that funding is distributed across about 7 different programs. Civils and sustainability, we have future communication and train control, reliable and sustainable power, safety, security and operations, track maintenance and plant, shift to rail, and my program, which is accelerated innovation. And I'll talk a little bit about more what we do in a minute. The goals of our control periods are to look at asset sustainability, to look at performance and growth within our networks, and make sure that we're working closely with our routes and regions to make sure that is reaching out and making sure we're doing the right thing and what's needed in those areas. We're also looking to improve safety and security. And underpinning all of this is looking at cost efficiencies and making sure our projects are actually delivering efficiently, and making sure that money is being well spent, and also making sure that where money isn't being well spent or projects aren't being as successful as first thought, we're actually looking at stopping those projects to prevent any inefficiencies in spend. Across the portfolio, we're working with universities and suppliers that we know, and new suppliers that come up through situations such as this, where we work with CPC. Working directly with CPC to help us do things like horizon scans, just like some of the work we're doing today, but just helping us feed our innovation, as Stuart was sort of talking about. We also work with Innovate UK, and high value manufacturing Catapult. So we've got quite a few existing partners that we work with generally. And the technologies that we're focused on are really broad, but just a few of them include robotics, materials that we're designing, and 3D printing, for example, thinking about autonomy, energy and data. So quite a few different sort of areas we hope to focus on. Moving on to accelerated innovation. So within our program, we work, like I said, closely with routes and regions. So whenever we have projects, we seek a sponsor from the route or region potentially who has come to us with the idea, or even a route or region that's already sort of flagged to us that they're looking for this sort of technology. And what we aim to do is deliver solutions using agile methodology where appropriate. What we do in this space is primarily look to create a proof of concept or a prototype, or if you're familiar with agile methodology, a minimum viable product. So a product that we can either look to implement straight away that gives us the greatest value and benefit for the smallest cost and input. And then what we would do is, where necessary, we'd look to expand on that by rolling it out, and also making sure that if it needs to be scaled up in some way, that we do that. So in a sense, we're quite a new portfolio. So we're not at the stage yet where we've scaled up and rolled out yet, but what we have got are a number of projects where the potential was very much there for that to happen. So we're in quite an exciting stage of our program being in place, which is great. What I'm showing you here is a pipeline. So what we do is we take ideas from the business. So anyone from Network Rail can approach us. Equally, CPC, for example, or other suppliers potentially approach us as well, and suggest ideas. But generally our ideas come from within Network Rail, from our colleagues. And what we do is we put it through a staged process where we judge each idea on its merits. So we ask whoever has put the idea forward to fill out some paperwork and have a discussion with us about what's the idea, what are the benefits of that idea, what's the problem that we're trying to solve, and ultimately what do we think could happen if we did achieve a minimum viable product, and have a discussion, a very high level discussion about potential costs, which just kind of feeds into our overall information. Once we've had that discussion, we then sort of progress and work on what we call a lean business case. So again, we just build on the original information that was compiled and make sure that we've got a strong case with which to take to the next level, which is prioritization. So prioritization helps us to decide whether individual projects are something that our team particularly needs to take forward. If it's not something that we feel can be rolled out in an agile way, or perhaps it would better sit in a different team because there's better expertise or knowledge, then in that case we would send it on to either one of our research and development portfolio teams to see if they could pick it up, or we might approach a route or region or a different part of Network Rail to see if they're able to pick it up. But if it does fall within our remit and the proposer or the sponsor is happy to work with us, then we'll take it forward. And generally the prioritization, we look really closely at the benefits that have been identified for each individual project. So for example, where safety is a benefit of a project, then it would potentially be prioritized over many other things, etc. It just depends, but generally we sort of have a ranking system for how we consider each project. And involved in that prioritization conversation are some key people from across Network Rail, including the proposer or the sponsor of that idea, so that their opinion is taken into account as part of that discussion. So assuming that your project has made it through prioritization, then we push it into our delivery stage. So delivery is split into two. We do some mobilization work, which is basically organizing, working with suppliers, working with our contracts and procurement team to make sure that any contractual arrangements need to be in place happen as expected, and anything else we need to sort out to enable our agile approach to kick in. So we get all that organized. Our actual delivery phase, we probably should find a different name for that. The delivery phase itself is where we're working closely with the supplier and the sponsor to actually deliver whatever product we've decided is the viable product. So what we do is we use 2-week sprint cycles within a sort of overall 12-week cycle to deliver what we've decided is the MVP. So every 2 weeks we do planning sessions, we have regular catch-ups with everybody involved so we know what's happening on the project, and at the end of that 2 weeks we have a quick review and a demo. So assuming progress has been made in that 2 weeks, the supplier would show us effectively something new that they've managed to build or some new development they've managed to create in the 2 weeks that have occurred. And so generally what we do is we seek a 12-week sort of beginning with our suppliers, and there's nothing to stop us from going beyond that. It's just what's the right thing to do. Is it going beyond 12 weeks with us, our team, or is it going 12 weeks beyond with another team? So there's discussions about that well before the 12 weeks are up, depending on how things go on the project. Equally, what we like to do is also recognize where a project isn't going well, perhaps what the sponsors ask for can't be delivered, etc., and we look to fail fast in that scenario. So in that sense, we're looking at the cost efficiency side of things. So we don't just keep going with the project just because it sounds like we should. We do make sure that we're checking the benefits, and that in fact it's going to deliver what we said it was going to deliver. So once we've reached our 12-week stage, we go into what we call a stage 5, which isn't on this. Well, it's not on the pipeline picture, but there's a little summary of it down below. But essentially, we need to make sure we've got a strong benefits case to take it to a next stage and provide a next stage of funding as well. So that's a summary, a really quick summary, and I'm happy to answer questions perhaps at the very end of the session if anyone wants to ask anything of how we operate. We have 25 live projects at the moment, including this project, so our level crossings boom lighting. And this project was proposed to us by Aidan, who's going to speak next. There was some key safety benefits, which helped this project to be prioritised through in our stage 3 of our pipeline. And so we're really excited to see what comes of all this work, comes of today. And to work with suppliers who might be keen to work with us and can provide the right solution for Aidan and his colleagues. So yeah, thank you for attending today, and looking forward to see what happens. So that's me, and I'll pass over to Aidan now, who's got the real info for you. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Okay, yeah, I'm going to talk through the challenge statement in a bit more detail, and then we'll move on to some questions. Okay, so yeah, what we're looking at is improvements to the level crossing boom lights. We mentioned half area crossings in the challenge statement, but I think actually it probably could go a bit wider than that. But why we spoke about half barriers was because now we're really looking at how we can improve the AHB, or the half barrier crossing at the moment. Originally we were sort of looking holistically, but I think we soon realised that we need to start looking at individual components and looking for quick wins and improve the safety as quickly and easily as possible. And the boom lights was one of those things we identified, and that's why we approached the Accelerated Innovation Programme to do just that. So some of you will probably already know this, but this is an automatic half barrier level crossing you see on the screen, named because it's half a barrier across the road, so there's still an exit path for the vehicle. Some of the components, we've got the road lights, or wig rags as they're sometimes called. That's not what we're looking at in this piece of work. We're looking at the smaller boom lights here, which the arrow is pointing to. As you can see, they're quite small. You can see them from both sides as well. But we feel that there's something we could do here to make them a bit better. So that they come on when the crossing activates, and the idea is to alert the user that the barrier is in front of them, so they don't advance the level crossing. Yeah, so again, that's what we're looking at, is these smaller lights on the barrier boom that are there to let the user know it's in front of them. And I said that the reason for this project really is safety, the real key safety benefit. Obviously, when there's a user on the railway when they shouldn't be, there's obviously a high risk of injury or fatality. And also with vehicles on the crossing, there's a risk of derailment as well. And with all of that comes performance impact as well. So in the image, you can see obviously that would have been costly to repair, and probably would have had the road closed and the railway closed for some time as well. Obviously, the main driver is safety, but there are some other smaller benefits as well. Just looking at some of the issues we face with sort of visibility of the level crossing. Some of it could be sort of the topology. So as you can see in this image, the booms are almost level with the horizon, and it's on a bit of a hump as well. So that could be quite difficult to see in some situations. We also have low sunlight and glare, which makes the lights difficult to see and the level crossing difficult to see. Wet weather, either from rain causing visibility issues, or glare from rain on the windscreen, and fog, and just generally bad visibility. All for just some ideas of the challenges we face with level crossings and conspicuity. Yeah, so just going back to what we were saying earlier, this is about the smaller boom lights, and this is a close-up of it. This is the existing one we use. I think, as you can see, it's quite small. I think we've probably got some details on what the outputs are like on it. We can come on to that later if it's required. Yeah. So in the challenge statement, you would have seen some high-level requirements, but I think it's important to note that these are really sort of just high level for now. They're not. It's not necessary to comply with them. They're really just to sort of give some considerations around probably some of the challenges, constraints we might face. So while we say compliant with applicable standards, that's not a firm immediate requirement. It's just to note that there might be some things to consider in legislation down the road a bit. So again, yeah, everyone's capable of delivering the requirements. So obviously we're looking for improving visibility. So whether that's bigger, brighter, different size, shape, we'll come on to it in a minute. But yeah, it's achieving something better and improving the visibility, but without introducing risk. That's key. Obviously, we want to be better, not worse. So that's important. We're looking for things that are already available or close to being available. We're not looking to reinvent the boom. It's not stated here, but really retrofittable would be preferred, I think, and that ties in with the budget requirement as well. Really, it's looking at low cost bolt-ons, retrofittable items. We don't want to redesign the whole level crossing barrier system. And then there's some technical requirements as well about being powered by 24 volts and it needing to face both ways. Just some further considerations. What sort of light should it be? Should it be individual spotlights like we have today, or could we have strips, LED strips like in the top left photograph there? Could we look at flashing or pulsing or static lights? Could we look at a combination of the two, so have some static lights and some flashing or pulsing lights? There's also some weight considerations. Whilst we didn't want to be too strict on that, it's just something to consider. Like I said before, we don't want to redesign the whole system, so something to bear in mind. But we're trying to leave it open for now. Something else we could consider as well, perhaps, but it might be something to look at separately, was lighting elsewhere, maybe in the road or projected. But I think keep the focus on the boom for now. There's just some other ideas that we had. And really, just wrapping up finally, was really this image really sort of shows the scale of the challenge. You've got direct sun glare and indirect sun glare here. There's a small hump in the road as well. This sort of really summarizes what we're trying to deal with and improve is this situation of users not seeing the level crossing and ending up in a situation where they don't want to be. This is not about trying to prevent those who are going to misuse the level crossing deliberately. This is about those users who made a mistake and generally didn't see it. So we're trying to help them out by making it as visible as possible, but not adding additional risk. I think that's probably it as an overview. I think we're going to go into a Q&A session now. So, Stuart, are you leading on that one?
Aidan, yeah. So, yeah, I'll sort of chair the Q&A session. So, yes, hopefully that will have given you all a bit of a recap on what it is, what the challenges that Network Rail want a solution to. I suppose on the face of it, the challenge is reasonably clear that the lights in some conditions are not particularly visible. So essentially what Network Rail are looking for is better or improved solutions to make the boom arms more visible in adverse conditions. And as Aidan says, as easily retrofittable a solution as possible. However, I'm sure people probably have some. Let me start my video. I'm sure people probably will have some questions, so let's go through so there's one question that's come in already from Gary Fortune. So Nick, if you can unmute his microphone. So Gary, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned this was a half barrier solution. Is this also to be used on a full barrier, or is it just limited to half barrier?
I think it could potentially go over to both types of crossings, half or MCB style. The initial target is AHBs, because we know we need to do something in that area. So yeah, I think it could go for both types.
Okay. Thank you.
Aidan, maybe just to kind of expand on that, I presume that there's nothing vastly different from a technical point of view on the two different lighting solutions.
I don't think so. Darren, I don't know if you can confirm.
No, that's right. If you can hear me. Technically, as Aidan says, they could apply to both. It's really, if we applied it wider than AHB, the only question really would be the cost versus the benefit. The risk is with the AHB, so that's the driver.
Okay, thanks for that question. Thanks for answering. Okay, does anyone else have any other? That's the only question I can see in the list so far. Okay, while there's waiting for a few more questions to come in, maybe I've got one sort of question that maybe the Network Rail guys can just clarify on. In terms of so ultimately this is around making the lights on the barriers more conspicuous. In terms of, I suppose, the sort of angle of the angle at which those lights need to be seen. Can you maybe say a little bit more about that? My understanding is the lights are relatively square on, if you like, to the road, but is there any particular need or requirement around the visibility sort of span of the lights?
So we have current specifications for that, yes, and if we stick to them or deviate from them really depends on the sort of solutions that come forward, and you know, whether they already are a solution doing the same problem elsewhere or not.
Okay. Okay, just going back to the questions. So it's a question from well, an anonymous. So the statement, or rather, is it may be worth clarifying whether visibility is required in all of the lighting conditions illustrated in the presentation. I think the answer is yes, but Aidan, maybe do you want to just confirm that that's true?
Yes, I think. Yeah, I think probably on what you probably consider a normal day that they're okay, but I think where we really struggle is with you know, low sun and poor visibility. But I think we recognise that they are quite small and low output, so I think anything we could do would be a benefit. So I think, Darren, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
No, I think the question is more in relation to in the challenge statement where we say it should be you know, available or readily available within a reasonable timescale, and that is a bit deliberately open. I suppose our expectations will be somewhat set by the sort of responses we get. If there's lots of things off the shelf better than what we have now, then reasonable will be much shorter. If everything that comes forward needs some development, we'll have to set our expectations with a bit of a longer horizon.
Okay, good, thank you. So next question, and it was kind of asked anonymously. Do you want a centralized visibility on boom performance, lights working, safety circuits working, or is this just purely a component-based request?
Can you read that one out again? Sorry, I haven't got it on the screen to read.
So it says, do you want a centralized visibility on boom performance, lights working, safety circuits working, or is this just purely a component-based request?
think that's asking, do we want any monitoring? I think.
Right. So if it is asking about monitoring, we don't currently monitor. So to monitor would be a difficulty with retrofit. So probably not.
Okay, do you want to give that some thought and then maybe come back to it or move on?
Okay. Unless the person who asked it wants to clarify.
Yeah, like I say, it's come up as an anonymous attendee, so I can't fortunately open their mic up to ask. Okay, next question from Claire Thompson. So we can unmute Claire's microphone. So Claire had a question around the key dates.
Hello, hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi, I just wanted to understand the dates, the 12th of October to the 31st of March. I understand the expression of interest is the 29th of July. So I just wanted to understand what those dates meant in terms of delivery.
Where have you seen those dates?
On the portal where you log in to upload your expression of interest.
Well, okay. I think there are some boxes where we have to put certain dates in. So I guess just to clarify on the dates for this project, so it's this kind of pin opportunity is open for 3 weeks. So maybe if Jack can come on in a second and clarify when the pin formally closes. I think it's a week Monday is the date that this you have to have your responses in by.
Yeah, I read that as being an expression of interest with the key outline to your proposal.
Yeah.
And I assume that would be assessed, and then a short list of potential solutions would go forward, which is why I was keen to try and understand what happened after that point and what these dates were from October to March.
Okay, I'd have to double check. And like I said, I know in the Proactive portal, there are some dates that have to be put in. If I'm honest, I'm not completely sure what all those dates relate to, but yeah, just for clarity for this project, so the opportunity to respond closes, I think it's a week Monday.
Yes.
We then do a sort of a 2 to 3 week review of all the responses that come in together with our own desktop research and present that back to Network Rail. And then ultimately at the end of this sort of horizon scanning activity, which I say will be sort of 2 to 3 weeks after the pin closes, that information will go to Network Rail, and then ultimately it's for Network Rail to decide how they want to progress. So I don't know if Anna wants to come in and say anything more about how you might see the outcomes of this project going forward.
Sure. If that's what you're looking for, Claire, I'm happy to talk a little bit about what we would do.
Well, it's more about the timescales for your, the delivering of the finished product, because if it's October, our approach might be different to if it's the product has to be ready for March.
Right. Okay. No, I'm not sure about those dates. Right. So Stuart gave an outline of where where we get to when the information about what suppliers have come back with comes to us. So I'm sort of seeing that around sort of very late August, September, we're sort of considering where we go next and who we work with. And then what we would do is that would be September, we would start talking to suppliers or the supplier, depending on what we've decided to do. And basically from that point, it would just be a period of how long is it going to take us to get everything set up? So a contract in place, what we need to do agreed. There'd probably be at least one session where we would all get together. So I would say there'd be at least 4 weeks, and then 4 weeks after that 4 weeks we could sorry, my son has chosen right now to come in. Yeah. Sorry, he's making a very sad face. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, right. So once that 4 weeks have passed, and that's I would say that's a conservative estimate of how long it might take us to get things sorted. That's when we'd look at our 12-week period to deliver a minimum viable product. When I say that, part of the discussions we'd have in that pre-period, which we call mobilization, would be to work out whether we can deliver something in an agile way, whether in fact 2-week sprints over 12 weeks is the right way to do it. So that is something that we would talk to suppliers about, because obviously if that isn't the best way to produce what we need, we would still be involved, but it would just be working out how we deliver. But ideally, I think delivering something every 2 weeks, or aiming to deliver a certain amount of work over every 2 weeks should be okay for most suppliers to talk about, or at least consider. So you'd be looking about 4 months from when we identify who we want to work with.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Just to jump in, sorry. So the 29th of July, that's the closing date for this pin. So it's lunchtime, 12 o'clock on 29th of July.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
Maybe just to pick up on a little comment that Hannah just made there as well, that in terms of the outcome of this pin activity, it might be that there might be one supplier, one idea that stands out head and shoulders above all the rest, and that gets taken forward. Or it might be that there's sort of 2 or 3 ideas that all have, on the face of it, kind of equal worth or equal interest in Network Rail. So it's not strictly the case that only one end solution or technology will get taken forward. If there's 2 or 3, there might be some opportunity to parallel sort of development really of activities, of ideas. I'm not sure if that was completely clear in the challenge statement or the documentation, so I just thought I'd clarify that. Okay, next question on the list, again from anonymous, so apologies I can't open your microphone. Could the maximum pulse continuous power limitations of the 24-volt supply be made available? There's a word missing there, I'm not quite sure. Alternatively, is there any specific advantage to this project to minimizing power consumption?
Was that question, can the power supply specs be made available, was it?
I think there's a word or two missing. So it's word for word, it reads, could the maximum pulse continuous power limitations of the 24-volt supply be made available? So I guess, yeah, any details around or any specification. Yes. Alternatively, is there a specific advantage to this project to minimizing power consumption?
The minimizing power consumption is not one of the key drivers, but I suppose that's always an advantage. In terms of the power supply, there were some details were put in the challenge statement, primarily 24-volt plus or minus 6 with a maximum draw of 250 milliamps. We have a bit more detail in terms of the level of noise on that supply. Those are the key requirements.
I guess our thoughts in the challenge statement, we sort of deliberately avoided putting too many technical details in, because, as I said sort of earlier, it's not necessarily the focus to come out with a design solution or a product at this stage. It's more to identify what are the potential solutions that could be put in place to help improve the lighting, and some of the, I suppose, more of the integration or implementation details would obviously need to be considered later on, but at this stage it's just understanding what ideas have people got around making the lighting more visible. Obviously there's some kind of key things like the 24 volts, but yeah, we deliberately avoided putting too much technical detail in. Okay, next question, again anonymous. Is the plan to upgrade all boom lights on all level crossing barriers and not just the AHB types? I think that was sort of answered at the start, but maybe just recap on that.
Yeah, that's the same question we had earlier, really, where we're saying that the driver is the AHB because that's where the risk is seen to be. But once the solution's there's not really any technical reason we couldn't apply it at other types of crossing.
Okay, good. Okay, there's a few questions in the chat as well. Yeah, if you have got questions, there's two. There's a Q&A box and there's also a chat box. If you can try and keep them to the Q&A box, then we're all in one place. But so I can still find them both. So, a question from Paul Blackburn. Unmute Paul. So it's about whether it has to be a retrofit solution. Paul.
I think there's a strong preference for retrofit at this stage. We really want to keep it a low cost and quick solution, or quick win. We don't want to be getting into some new ideas at this stage.
Okay, Paul, if you're able to, if we're able to unmute your microphone, does that answer your question? Is there anything more you wanted to know about that? Paul, you're still on mute. I don't know if you're able to unmute your microphone. Okay, I'm not getting anything from Paul. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. And so the next question, another question from Gary. So if we can unmute Gary again, around the number of crossings that might adopt this solution.
Yeah, it's kind of as simple as that, really. Do you know what the potential opportunity looks like for the number of half barriers that would adopt this solution?
So the current count of automatic half barriers is it's around about 400, 420, something in that region.
Thank you.
Maybe just to kind of expand that, would you expect to replace or to roll out the solution to them more or less all at the same time, or would it be a kind of a rolling program of upgrades?
It would almost certainly be a rolling program of some kind.
Sorry, Gary, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, so sorry. So just clarification, really. 420 was at half barrier site, so therefore, you know, if I think there's two lights per boom, so that's, you know, 4 times 420.
That's right. That's the number of sites.
Yeah, yeah.
With 2 or 3 lights per boom, typically 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to add, Darren and Aidan, sorry, I may have missed it with Quinn sort of running around, but did you guys say how many lights were required in the eastern region? Because that's where we're sort of doing our initial work.
No, that was a national figure.
Yeah, so I think what we sort of need to clarify is just for the initial work that we would do up front, it would just be looking at the eastern region numbers. And then any wider rollout, your national numbers would apply.
So do we know what the numbers are for eastern region?
I will find that out in a second.
Lovely, thank you.
I just need to filter.
Thanks, Darren.
Maybe if I can kind of second guess why you might have asked that question. In the response form, we asked people to give us an indicative cost, and I guess to be able to do that, you might need to have some idea of the potential market. But when we've done these industry webinar events for other Horizon scans before, the question of how to properly cost something up that, you know, might still be a relatively innovative idea or still in development is obviously quite difficult. I guess to kind of answer that the purpose of asking for an indicative cost is not, you know, for you to come up with a highly detailed cost proposal that you're going to be bound to. You know, obviously, if you have a good idea of how much the solution might cost to deploy, then obviously that's very useful. But I guess we appreciate that particularly with some of the more innovative ideas, it's quite difficult to be able to, have a very clear idea of what the cost might be. So again, I don't know whether Anna, you want to add anything to this, but essentially I think the request for cost is for an initial indication really, but obviously going forward, a lower cost is always going to be better. Anna, do you want to add anything about the cost information?
Nothing specific other than just in terms of the initial cost, it really is because we're looking to prove a concept. Obviously a lower cost is preferable. That would depend entirely on what the solution is. But as we're essentially running trying to find a minimum viable product, it's pretty much just starting off at a low cost. If scaling up or rolling out requires additional cost, that's something that we obviously feed into once we get to a point where the product is being created that we're happy with. And funding for that is considered separately based on our benefits. So,
but whatever cost people put in the response, they're not going to be bound to it. It's
no, that's right. Yeah.
Cost would be sort of discussed in more detail if their individual's solution is to be taken forward.
Yeah, that's right.
So just to answer that previous question then, from the information I've got here, it's 145 within the London North Eastern region, who are the region currently sponsoring this. So as Anna says, that may well be an initial number, but for a successful solution, there's no reason it wouldn't then go national.
Thank you.
Okay, we've gone through, well, all the questions are in both the Q&A panel and in the chat currently. I think we have gone through. Yeah, I don't see any more new questions coming in. Yeah, so I guess, are there any further questions anybody would like to ask, or any further clarification anyone would want while we have the opportunity and the Network Rail guys available to answer? I'll give you a few minutes to think about. If questions come to you later, I think through the Proactis portal, where you've come across the opportunity, there is somewhere within there a mechanism by which you can ask a question that will find its way via email to us. So if you don't either want to ask your question sort of openly here today, or you have a question that you think of sort of after today you want to ask, there is still that mechanism to ask via the portal. Okay, there's no more questions that are coming through. So if there's no more questions coming through, we can probably.
There's a question on.
Yeah, I think there's
reliability.
Yeah. There's a couple more, I think, Stuart, have just come up on the.
Can you read that? Because I for some reason I'm not. Oh yeah, okay, I see them. Yeah.
Cool.
There's quite a few. So, question first from Haozeng. So if we can unmute. Hi there, John. Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so basically my question is, does the solution need to be a complete one, kind of involving sort of lighting solution, or can it be part of it, for example, providing a signal when there's kind of traffic approaching, etc. So being part of it.
Darren or Aidan, do you want to answer that?
So I think you would probably need to pick up the signal we would provide and put the lights on when we need them to come on as part of the circuit. So really it's just the lighting, all the control and sort of signaling will be on Network Rail side.
Yeah, I'd say if you have got any interesting solutions around, and just reading what you've written around detecting motorists approaching, then it would certainly be interesting to hear about them and how you think they could potentially help.
Yep.
I think it might be interesting to potentially explore, I guess, adaptation to different conditions, say, I don't know, like a day and a night setting or something.
Yeah.
You know, bright sunlight, maybe it could be brighter to deal with that or something like that. Yeah, that might be interesting to hear a bit more on, perhaps.
Yeah. Thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So kind of looking at sort of providing cues for what would the actual signals or the warnings should be for either car drivers, etc. Yeah, that was helpful. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said before, the whole idea of these horizon scans is to define the challenge rather than specification, because there might be lots of innovative or novel ways that people have thought of to do it that maybe we haven't thought of. So yeah, that's I suppose I guess that's what we're hoping to get out of these kind of activities, is to come up with new and innovative and novel ways of doing things. So, good, thank you. Next question, again, kind of asked anonymously. Do we need to comply with design for reliability guidelines? I guess ultimately yes, but maybe not a strict consideration at this stage. I guess, well, Darren, Aidan, do you want to give your thoughts?
So before we product accepted and deployed in an operational sense, yes, we would have to. Don't let that necessarily put you off. So if you've got solutions that haven't been through it, that doesn't mean you can't put them forward.
I guess those are the sort of details that be fleshed out, through the development of the MVP and the sort of further deployment into product. Yeah, like I say, sort of refine those details in due course. But for this stage of the submission, I don't think you need to show compliance to all of those sorts of requirements.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Stuart. That not complying to that stuff wouldn't stop you from starting off. We would just work through what we need to do as we move through the production of whatever product's being designed. So.
Next question, again anonymous. Is the plan to upgrade all the boom lights on all level crossing barriers? So we've had that already, haven't we? And not just the AHB type. So I think that question's been answered already.
Yeah, we did that.
Okay, we've again come to the end of unless anyone sees any new questions coming in. That's the last question on the list that I can see. Okay, well, since there's no further questions coming in, then I guess we can draw to close. Like I said before, if you have any sort of questions that come to you sort of after the event, or you want to add or ask privately, there is the mechanism through the portal to do that. So yeah, I guess we can draw to close. Thank you both thank you to Darren and Aidan for being on hand to answer the questions, for Anna for being able to give a bit more of a perspective on how these sorts of projects feed into Network Rail's sort of wider long-term sort of technical development, research and development activities.
Stuart, sorry, I think Paul has just put up one question.
Yes, okay. Just
okay.
Can we try and unmute Paul's microphone again? I think there was some trouble unmuting it before, but could we give another try? Paul, are you there?
Hi, Stuart. Is that working now?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so just to talk through, you talked about the 12-week period to get a proof of concept and a trial. So after that point, how long do you want to trial this before we roll out? And this is just for looking at production readiness and when we'll move to the volume.
Probably a question for Anna again, or maybe.
Actually, I was going to refer to Aidan and Darren on this just to get their views on what would happen once they had a finished product at the end of the 12 weeks. Where would they see that going after that?
Yeah, and it was to understand, normally with the product approval, we have a trial of a certain period, don't we, to prove, to use as part of the reliability data. So just interested to see what your thoughts were, and to find out that my microphone is working again.
Yeah, so typically we trial something for, say, 6 to 12 months. So we'd probably be choosing a trial site or two for that sort of period of time to monitor it, and then rolling out beyond that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, any more final questions? It's a bit like being an auctioneer. Going once, going twice. We'll give it a few more seconds just in case anyone has any more questions. Okay, there's no more coming in, so I think we might be done now. Okay, so just, yeah, again, to thanks Anna, to Darren and Frayden for coming on and explaining a little bit more about what the challenge is, what the sort of solution or the requirements they're looking to solve are, a little bit more about how this activity fits into sort of the wider network rail sort of innovation, procurement and deployment. Like I say, if there are any more questions, then there's the mechanism via the portal. So I think that is it from us. So thank you all for attending. I hope this has been a useful session to get a bit more of an understanding about what the requirement and what the ask is. And yeah, thank you for your time. George.